Good morning. This is my follow-up to my recent video, which was about mocks don't matter. Of course they do, but what we have to do is make sure the key word is preparing. And there's a famous quote by Benjamin Franklin: by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. So preparation is the key to success in applying strategy. So number one, you need to prepare yourself for the exam. And in order to prepare yourself for the exam, you do this way before the exam takes place. And you learn and hone these skills during things like mocks. This is where you can test out your strategy and see if it works and see how comfortable you are. So when you actually have formulated a strategy, you then need to learn it. You have to learn it off by heart, like a script. You know, when I think about what the students do in the exams, they're going into a hall. It's going to be very nerve-wracking and it's very difficult to cope with. But what you can do prior to that, if you get up just a wee bit earlier than your normal time at school, get yourself outside, take the dog for a walk, or even go for a run for 15 minutes. You know, this is kind of what athletes do when they're training for big events in various sports. They don't sit around, they actually do something. Have a good breakfast. Make sure that you're fueled up, ready with energy. And that is really important. But what I'm going to show you today is what we can do with the strategy. So I'm going to share up the strategy in a second and I'll just bring it up. The thing is, we do have the ability to work to a strategy. So this is the strategy that I have developed over the years. And if you look at it, it talks about the time that the exam takes place. It says 1 hour, 45 minutes. I don't think that kind of mixed measurement is very helpful. What I think is helpful if you convert it into minutes. Now you're dealing literally with every minute of the day. So this is what I would suggest when you're going in for your mock, and you can try this out and see how it goes. So when you go into the exam, obviously you should now be in that state of calm, but adrenaline is running high. And we know, as I mentioned in the last video, that the psychology of the exam can create anxiety. And a lot of students who are very capable sometimes actually have a poor performance because of anxiety starts to control them. What we're trying to do is build confidence in students to stay calm and to work through things that are tried and tested. So when you go in, you've got 105 minutes. We know that 15 minutes of that is basically allocated to reading. But let's just look at it as we go. So when we go in, we start, what we normally do, we quickly scan the exam papers. And that is, that is very sort of obvious that you will do that. But you only spend 2 minutes on that. But already you will see that now leaves you 103 minutes. Now, my strategy basically encourages students to go for the biggest mark question on the paper. This will give you time to settle in. It will get rid of those nerves and you'll get into the flow. And then you'll get into the full mode of the exam and what it's about. I've allocated the time for that of 40 minutes. So 40 minutes now is the allocation of time, and you stick to your plan. If you go 1 minute over, fine. But if you go way over, you're going to start not keeping to the plan. So when that has been done and you've written your description, your picture of the picture or the story or the opening of a story, whatever it is, in the question 5 in AQA language paper 1, then you have 63 minutes left. Now, when you've just been writing in that way and you've been handwriting it, which is the way it is for most of the students at the moment, you're already getting that tiredness. But what a great opportunity now to actually spend time just reading the source. And remember, it actually says on the cover pages that you have 15 minutes where you can read both the source and the questions. So I've allocated 10 minutes of reading time. And with that 10 minutes, you can read the source and read it in a relaxed way. And when you try this out, don't panic. Don't think because you're reading carefully, you're wasting time. If you read carefully, you're actually storing that knowledge. If you're rushing it, you will end up jumping back into the text several times. And that just doesn't work. And in fact, you'll end up wasting time. So let's say you stick to 10 minutes reading time, and now you would look at the question 4, which is the next biggest question on the paper. But the good news here is this particular question is dependent on you reading the second part of the source. So although you've spent somewhere between 6 and 10 minutes, you've still got time to reread the second part of the source, but in the light of this question that you're about to answer. So you look at the question, and it's in the old days, it's going to be the student says. This will change. There won't be any students. It will be a statement where you have to agree or disagree. I've allocated 22 minutes to that. Now, because it's a good size question with 20 marks, if you did 25 minutes, you're not breaking a rule. It is basically investing in the bigger mark questions that we say will help you get through this exam with a much bigger buffer and getting 6s or 7s, 8s or 9 in the levels rather than a 4 and a low 5. So when you've spent 22 minutes on that, you now have an allocation of 31 minutes left. Now, when you think about it, the other 3 questions you're about to do are only amount to 20 marks. Now, you've just done 40 marks and you've just done 20 marks. That's 60 out of 80. That is 3/4 of the marks on the exam you've already done. So now you should be feeling confident. And if you think about it, by keep going in the backward route on this exam, we're beginning to read more and more and learn more and more. We've just reread to do question 4. Now we're going to look at the whole source again. So again, a quick read of the whole source just to point out all the structural features and to express opinions and effects of those you do. And that is an allocation of 10 minutes time. And then after that, you have 21 minutes left. And you then look at the language question, which has an insert, which actually shows you the area. By the time you've got to this question, you are now well and truly understanding the whole of the source. So you can actually probably even minimize the time on that. And then you come to the final mark. And I know that in the new exams in the 2026, it's not going to be the listing exam, it's going to be a multiple choice, and this is going to be, and I've allocated 4 minutes to that. Now I reckon with the multiple choice it actually takes longer than listing because you've got 8 statements to read. So I've allocated 4 minutes, but again, when you've done this paper, you have already read the whole source several times, and you are now just going back to a small area that you have to look at in the multiple choice questions. Now, if you stick to this plan, and you must stick to it, you've got over 7 minutes checking time. Now, this is crucial. This checking time is going to help you really make a difference in the marks, especially on the question 5, where you want to check your technical accuracy, your spellings, your punctuation, so you're not losing marks. Okay, so that is the strategy there in action. Now let's just come back on to the line. Right, so we have now just discovered that the strategy that you do means you are taking control. You are taking control of the exam. It is not controlling you anymore. And, you know, fortune favors the brave. Don't be afraid of doing things in a different way. It is your exam. I've said this to students the other day, that when you are taught, you're taught as a team. It's not a team exam. You know, it's like being training for a team. And when you're playing in an individual sport, you can't. At the end of the day, you're dependent on yourself, your own decisions and everything else. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you, but please, if you like videos like this, subscribe to this channel and get more tips and advice like this again and again. There's also the ability on this particular video to purchase the actual resource that I've created about mastering exam strategy. So thank you very much for your time, and let's hope that this strategy helps you start to ace those grades. Thank you very much.